I'm Kit Cassingham, longevity mindset coach at Live and Focus Energy. I believe age is a mindset, and I love helping people over 40 explore their mindsets to realize their possibilities and to generate the energy and desire to live their best lives. Longevity isn't as much how long you live as how well you live. And how well you live is influenced by why you do what you do every day in all areas of your life. In addition to helping you explore your mindset, I'll help you discover and activate your why and purpose.
All right. And I'm Alex Niel, certified high performance and mindset coach. And what I do is support high achieving women who feel burnt out, exhausted, stressed out, unfulfilled to banish the hustle and design a life where career, relationships, and well being all live in harmony. And today, Kit and I are going to talk about high performance. We're going to talk about what it means, we're going to talk about what it feels like, and then we'll go into each of the 6 pillars that really are the hallmark of high performers. Going through this will help you determine whether or not you're a high performer and see what the opportunities are for you. So I
It's
guess
gonna
I
be
can, it is going to be
it's gonna
fun.
be it's gonna be fun. Yeah.
It's clearly one of my favorite topics. So
Mhm.
let's dive into what high performance is, because we often hear people talk about peak performance. And what happens when you have peak performance is just like anywhere else, where there's a peak, there generally comes a valley. The whole idea behind high performance is really about getting people to that really next level of performance, but helping them to sustain that over time, over the long term, and consistently exceeding their own standards and their own expectations. So it's a constant wave or ride up instead of that peaks and valleys that we often see happen. Athletes talk a lot about peak performance because when they have to be on, you know, when they have to compete, then they need to be at that peak performance. For us in everyday life, it's less about those peaks and valleys and more about continued and sustained high performance. Kit, any thoughts on that?
I will add that athletes though need to keep they perform, so that's when they have to be at their best. But they're always working at maintaining that quality and maybe exceeding it. When I was a high performance coach and I would mention what I did, people go, I'm not a race car.
Yeah.
No, there's more to life than being a race car. So anyway, back to you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing when people think high performance, to me, when I first started diving into the topic, it felt unattainable because high performance sounded like just so monumental. But it actually, when you break it down to what the 6 pillars are, and we'll go into that in a second, it's actually really simple. They're really simple concepts, but what makes it difficult is consistently stepping into those 6 concepts and making sure that we integrate those in in our life.
Choosing each of those
Yeah,
pillars or steps.
yeah, exactly. And you might also wonder, what does it feel like to be a high performer? So what it feels like is really being fully engaged in your life, even on the most mundane things, being joyful and being confident that you're living to your fullest potential because you are consistently showing up for yourself and for your family and for the world around you as really the best version of yourself. So,
Absolutely.
all right. So let's talk about what the six pillars are, right? So the six pillars are um, were developed and confirmed through research. Over 800,000 um, different data points were looked at, analyzed, and they found that these six concepts or these six pillars are correlated with more happiness, better job performance, more financial success. All of those things really are correlated with high performance. And the six pillars are this: clarity, energy, courage, productivity, influence, and necessity. So we're going to go into each of those in a little bit more detail. So anything you want to say, Kit, before we dive in? Anything you want to add?
Um, no, let's keep going.
Okay.
I'll jump in as I have things.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Okay. So clarity is the first one. And it's one of the pillars because when we're not clear about who we are, about what we want, about what makes us happy, about what makes us unhappy, it's really easy for life to kind of take us anywhere that it wants us to go. It's easy for us to lose our focus, to lose our attention, because if we don't have a North Star, if we're not clear about those things, it makes it much easier to get distracted, right? If an opportunity comes along or something comes along that sounds interesting, if we don't ask ourselves, okay, is this in the same direction as what my goals are? Is this in alignment with who I am when I'm at my best? It's very easy to say, yeah, totally, I'll do it. I'll participate. I'll take it on. I'll whatever. But then that distracts us, or it has the potential to distract us from our mission or our purpose or who it is that we're trying to grow into. So having clarity about who is it that I am, how I want to show up, what does my best self look like so that we know what we're growing into is, like I said, one of the pillars of high performance.
And I will say that there's another value to having that clarity element. That if you have ADD, ADHD,
Mm,
you do get distracted by all the wonderful things to do in life. What if you don't have that clarity piece and stay focused on it? You still, I mean, you can know about the value of clarity and still get distracted.
mhm.
You at least have a place to come back to if your intention is to keep that clarity strong.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, Alex, I have just come through some interesting changes in my life. And when we decided last spring, coming up almost in a year since we made this decision to sell everything we own and move to a residential cruise ship, I was focused. I had ultimately 6 weeks to get rid of everything we owned and pack up what we were taking with us and go. I got over focused. All of my other pillars dropped away. And I started developing some really unhealthy lifestyle behaviors. So you can overdo clarity. So I'm going to say right here, balance is real important with these pillars.
Absolutely. I mean, and balance is ultimately what we all aim for, right? We want to live a balanced life because anytime we overemphasize one part of our life, other things naturally will drop off because we just don't have the bandwidth to do everything.
We all only
And
get 24 hours a day. So
exactly, exactly. And when we have that clarity about who we are, what we want, etc., it's a lot easier to make those decisions because we can very quickly discard something that we know is not aligned so that we can keep our attention on the things that really truly matter.
It's interesting that to watch some of the discussions, debates at times about can you have a balanced life?
Mm,
And some of that is splitting hairs on terminology. Um, that, if you've got a big project, that's what's going to take your time and else will fall away. Or people say, no, you can't do that. So I think it's important to, even when you have big projects, to maintain an awareness of the other important
mm,
aspects in your life. It might be having a negotiation with your family or coworkers this week, this month, whatever. I'm going to be super focused on this. But when I'm done, we're going to get together and have that. So you keep your eye on the prize, which is a balanced life.
yeah.
Doesn't mean every day. It means in general. I think that's my take on it.
Completely agree with you. And I believe there's a misconception in terms of what people consider balance, right? And it's balance is I have 8 hours at work, 8 hours out of with the family, and 8 hours I sleep, right? Super oversimplified. But it's
Very.
actually not necessarily that. It's the quality of the time that you spend in those, you know, in those hours. And when family, for example, is a value that you hold dear, the quality of time that you're able to spend there, even if it's just 1 hour, is going to be better spent than a whole weekend when you're staring at your phone, even though you're surrounded by family.
I've started using the word harmony. We've talked about
Yeah.
this in some of our calls, that it is the harmony that we keep in our lives that gives us balance, really. That's
But you can't have that harmony if you're not clear about what makes you tick and about
right.
what's important.
Yeah.
So it's also, I think, like, especially for you, because I think you exemplified exactly this part of the discussion in that when you had to get everything squared away in your 6 weeks so that you can, move on to this new life, that had to have your attention, but it doesn't mean that you stay there. There's an opportunity once those moments have passed to recalibrate and set new boundaries and new guardrails for what you want and how you want to show up.
Well, and that's part of that didn't happen for me.
Mm,
Um, the stress kept rolling, and I am now pretty well recovered, and I can tell my balance is getting better with my focus. I'm starting to think about, okay, it's time to do a new welcome video. I have an idea of what I'm going to say. All right. And so that's starting to percolate. And that's one of my barometers for when I am living a more balanced life
mm.
and that my clarity is coming back, that the creativity percolates right on through my body and up into my brain.
So, first concept, clarity. Anything you want to add to what we just chatted about?
Um, no, I was thinking just then that perhaps clarity doesn't have to be one thing. A
Mhm.
North Star, as I loved how you described it, has many points, but it's still many points of the star, but it's still a point of light or whatever. So I like to stress that we can have a lot of interest, but they have to all come together in a cohesive dream or goal
Mm,
to make a North Star to go to. They can't be split, otherwise we get split.
yeah, absolutely. That's a great add. Thanks, Kit. Okay, pillar number two is energy. And as somebody who has struggled with sleep for years, energy is critical. It's really foundational because if you've ever tried to make it through the day on 2 hours of sleep after, I was going to say go on a bender the night before, You
Gender might be work.
true. You know how difficult it is to get things done when you're just so tired. And energy is a lot of different things. It's not just physical energy. That's the easy one. That's what you eat. It's how much sleep you get. It's um, exercise. It's all of those things put together. But it's also your mental energy. Do you have the mental stamina to work through the things you need to work through, right? Do you have the emotional energy to engage with people so that you build relationship instead of destroy relationship? And do you have their spiritual energy, one that I probably tap into less, but do you have, the energy for engaging with whatever that higher power is, if that's what you believe in, um is that also healthy? So energy is really a bunch of different things coming together. And we talked about balance, work life, in a way, balance, having balance in our life. It's important for us to have balance in our energy as well.
And I'm really glad you brought in the other components of where you need energy. I think I fall into the trap of, and I know other people do too, of thinking of energy as just a physical thing,
Mm,
but it really is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Um, I have unending physical energy, but at the end of my packing spree, I hit decision fatigue.
mm,
I mean, I finally called some girlfriends over and said, "Can't make another decision." Here's a silly story and true story. I had a palm full of hair ties, and I'm going, "Oh, I can't take them all. Which ones? Should I throw them all away? Do I keep them? All of them? Which ones?" And my girlfriends laughed. They pulled one out and they said, "The rest are gone." And here you, and I've now lost it. But, but I couldn't make any more
yeah.
decisions. Um, and I actually had several times I had people come over and say, "Help me figure out what to do here." And I should have called in for more help than I did to actually get rid of things. I should have called, well, it doesn't matter. I should have just got more help so I could have properly distributed more of our belongings.
Mm. So I'm curious to hear from you on this whole physical energy piece, because with aging, right? The mentality is that we start slowing down, the body starts quote unquote breaking down. So what are some, if you had to give somebody three pieces of advice in terms of how to maintain good energy as we get older, what would you what
Oh,
would you
what a
tell
good
them?
question. The first thing I would start with is don't blame everything on aging.
Okay.
That's where I came up with age is a mindset. If you think you're going to get low energy as you get older, bingo, that's what's going to happen.
Self-fulfilling
When I walked,
prophecy.
yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy indeed. When I got back from Italy last year, having walked my pilgrimage, and I designed it wrong, and I actually ran out of energy. My body didn't want to do this. And friends, somebody said to me, "Doesn't getting old suck?" I go, "Oh, that had nothing to do with being older. It was I got cocky, I hadn't trained properly, and I pushed too hard every day. I wasn't being older, being out of shape."
Mm,
And I was startled by, oh, and that's where I started realizing I'm not a longevity coach. I'm a longevity mindset coach. That if your knees hurt, that means you need to move them more. Start gently and work
mhm,
it up. Um, See yourself in a positive light. And if you want to feel like you did as a 30-year-old, then see yourself as that 30-year-old and feel it. You don't have to look it, but it will, if you feel it, it will help you act
As
younger
if
and not like, I don't age. I have birthdays every year, but I'm not older. Just get more birthday parties.
just wiser.
That's it. Oh, that's it. I'm just wiser. So the first thing is have the mindset that you don't get weaker, low energy, low mentation because you're getting older. Yeah, life kicks in and things happen, and there may be some ailments, but then I kick into my attitude of, well, you have to sleep well, as you pointed out, and you have to eat good foods, whole foods, cut the sugar and the chemicals, and just eat whole foods, and that will heal a lot of that goes on with us. And Mark Hyman talks about the pharmacy,
Mm,
spelled Pharmacy. I go, yeah, food is medicine.
mm,
So,
mm.
and movement. When you hurt, that means you aren't moving joints enough. Yes, you can get arthritis, but I think there's some nutrition that can help and gentle movement, be it your knees, your ankles, your hips, your hands, whatever. So
Cool.
those are a couple of ideas.
All right. Thanks, Kit. All right. So next comes courage. And this is probably one of my favorite ones. And it makes me think about my niece because my niece is actually afraid of a lot of things. She's afraid to take the elevator by herself. She's afraid of, um, I can't even remember, but there's so many things. But
Spiders,
hmm?
spiders.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Like freak out, fearful. Anyways, I just want to stay on the elevator example because
That's a
I
good
had
one.
so many discussions with her when I was home, and I kept talking to her about the only way to get over the fear is to do the thing that scares you. And a lot of time, I think people think about courage as professions, right? Firefighters running into burning buildings, police officers putting their lives in danger every single day. But sometimes it's taking the elevator. Sometimes it's having a difficult conversation. Sometimes it's doing something that you've never done before, right? So, and the
It can
more
even
we,
be eat. It can even be eating a food that you don't know
yeah,
and
exactly.
being afraid to try it.
Yeah. And
So
the more we do those little things, the more confidence we get within ourselves. And you can't think your way out of fear. You can't rationalize your way out of fear. The only way that you can really get through it and get over it is to do the thing that scares the pants off you, right? Doing this with you, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have been like, nope,
oh,
I'm not, but here we are. So being able to, we can't do great things without taking a risk. And taking a risk means being courageous and trusting that we're going to be able to get through whatever it is that we're grappling with, so to speak.
feel the fear and do it anyway.
That's right.
Now, I grinned big when you said you can't think your way out of fear. One of the things I came away from my first Camino with was I turned it into an acronym and taught a class on transforming fear into action.
Okay.
And the acronym is CAPO. So first you have to have curiosity, like what is it about this that's making me afraid? Then you accept and adapt to that situation. And as soon as you start accepting I mean, fear of heights is a good one.
Mhm.
But you accept what's going on and then adapt your thinking. All right, what's another way I could do this or think about this? Then you get present and you stay open to possibilities that are bigger and beyond you. And it's you don't just instantly do that, though the more you practice capo, the more you can do it. And my analogy is that, do you know what a capo is?
No.
It's a device you put on a stringed instrument. We most commonly see them on guitars, so you could see it on any stringed instrument. And when you strap it onto the neck of the guitar, it essentially, and this is very layman, but it raises the pitch of the guitar.
Okay, so it's that
And
bar that you put on the neck of the
yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm saying that when you use capo for your life, you are raising your vibrations, which
Mm.
helps you accomplish more. I have been using it so long now that it comes pretty quickly to me. And it's real interesting to see the number of ways I can use that. And yes, when I overcome that fear, it feels so good.
Yeah. It's because it's like being in prison, right? It holds you back. It keeps you
Yeah.
playing small. It keeps you from really achieving your true potential. And I mean, I'd like to think that by the end of my life, I will have lived as fully as I possibly can, not been held by the fear of what if, right? Because I've had examples
And
in the past where I didn't do something that I was fearful, and then I was like, I did it, and I was like, the hell was I so afraid about? Like there was nothing like the stories that we tell ourselves about the thing are so much worse than
oh
what the
yeah,
reality is.
there's a suspension bridge in Northern Ireland. I don't remember how long it is or how high above the water it is, but it's enough to scare most people.
Mm.
And the two people traveling with me go, I'm not doing that. And they both watched me walk across and play on the island. It went over to a little island, a little spit of rock. And then I came back, and they both said in their own way, "Oh, I could have done that if only I'd known how easy it was." Well, when the bridge gets to undulating, you have to adapt and adjust your step so that you can keep your balance. Holding the handrail or the
Yeah,
rope, good idea.
yeah,
So it wasn't as easy as it looked. It looked easy because I did it. And that's which exactly what you were saying, that you kind of do a slap in the head.
yeah. And I think what I've learned over the years too is that it helps to think about things as they are, not as we think they are. So being objective and not making a mountain out of a molehill only because we get caught in the emotion of the moment and that anxiety and that fear, which makes something like this seem like this.
Yeah. One of the books I'm reading focused on for a section or two, a page or two, that fear is the lack of love. I don't quite
Interesting.
have my head wrapped around that, but I kind of get it. I'm thinking, and I hope they talk about it more later, but I think the lack of love is for yourself, for maybe for your higher power.
Mm.
And I think of higher power more generally than it's not God, but it's anyway. Um, and I think if I had more love for myself and trusted myself,
That's what
the
it is. It's the
fear,
trust piece.
the fear would melt away.
Yeah,
But you got to have, maybe you have to have the love before you can have the trust. I don't know.
maybe.
But I'll just lob that into the conversation and see what comes of it from one of our audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think it depends on, I'm like you, I have a little bit of a hard time connecting love with um fear or fear with lack of love, but definitely a trust A
It's like
trust thing.
it's a teeter-totter.
Yeah. And we begin to trust ourselves more the more we do the little things that scare us. And
Yeah.
it doesn't, stepping into the fear doesn't mean you have to do these, like you have to go jump out of an airplane. No. Again, sometimes it's making that phone call that you've been dreading to make and that you're imagining all kinds of stories around. And it becomes this huge thing because we don't bite the bullet and say, you know what, whatever happens, happens, but I have to do this, and I'm going to do this. And
Our
having the
move,
courage to do it.
yes. Well, and yes, so it, bringing courage right back in. Our decision to move
Mm,
raised fear in our friends. Oh, I could never sell my house. I have to have a house. We can always buy another one.
yeah.
Well, how do you know you're going to like living on the ocean or in that small a cabin? I said, we didn't know if we'd like living in the middle of nowhere, Colorado,
Yeah.
and we did it anyway. And we lived and worked in a 300 square foot yurt while our house was being built. So we know, I mean, if you take out the office component, we're down to the size of the cabin we'll have on the ship. Um, and if we don't like it, we'll quit doing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh, we're not letting fear of the unknown stop us, which is makes it exhilarating. I wonder what it's going to be
Yeah.
like.
And I think that's one of the keys, because when I told people that I was moving to China for a year and a half, people were like, first of all, why? And second of all, are you crazy? Do you speak Chinese? Do you know? And it's like, no, but I'm curious. It's a good way to get to know different culture, get to experience different foods, get to connect with people that I might not normally connect with on a regular basis. So I think bringing in that curiosity element of, I want to explore. This is like an adventure. If we looked at things as the thing that scares us as an adventure, as an exploration, as a learning, it makes the emotion around the fear smaller. At
Yeah,
least
it
it did for
does.
me.
It does. And it also, by broadening your understanding of the world and your horizons, reduces your fear of those unknowns. You found Chinese people to be kind of like French and American people. They're people.
Everybody
Uh,
deals with the same stuff.
yeah, yeah. And we all put our pants on roughly the same way.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so, yeah. So, yeah, I understand why people thought you were wacky, nuts, off the deep end in
Yeah,
deciding to move to China.
yeah. But it was fun.
Oh, I bet it
Uh,
was.
It was. All right. Next is productivity. And this is a topic that I love because productivity is, I think, a very charged word, because I used to see myself as productive until I learned the difference between being productive and being busy. And what I found is that I spent more time being busy, which meant doing a whole lot of things without much direction, which invited a lot of chaos and anxiety and being stressed and being pressed for time, versus being productive, which is really about doing the things that really matter, doing the things that make a difference, doing the things that move the needle or move the projects or move your life forward. And it takes out that element of that chaotic element, right?
Frenzy.
Yeah. And there are a lot of tools available to us all that help us with our productivity. But if I take it a step back, productivity is also about time management, but it's also about energy management, right? Bringing it back to the energy discussion. If we don't manage our energy properly throughout the day, if we don't schedule ourselves in the right way so we know where our time is going, it's very easy to tip into that busy side versus staying on that productive side.
And I have a couple of different examples that fit into the two things you just talked about there. Um, I tried Brendan's way of scheduling my day,
Mm,
and I felt constrained, and I was getting too antsy, so I played with it. Um, and I finally came up with my version of scheduling, which was a blend of a to-do list, mind mapping, etc. And I call it, it's been too long since I've referred to it, a fluid schedule.
mm,
As a volunteer EMT in my county, whenever the pager went on, unless I was on a call with a client, I dropped everything and dashed. So when I come back, does that mean I pick up where I left off or say, no, it's 2 o'clock and now it's time to do this? I chose, no, I just pick up where I left off. And I would choose, here are the top three things I've got to do today. So I would start with the number most important, and I wouldn't go to bed till I had at least the third one done.
mm.
Sometimes I could get the fourth, fifth, and sixth done, and sometimes it was a push to get the third one done. But that worked for me and the way my brain works. And I have alarms in my phone to say, don't forget this appointment. Don't forget you wanted to do this.
I
So,
I laugh at the alarm thing because if I had no alarms, I would be a wandering fool all day long, not knowing what the heck to do all day long.
yeah, but you can have too many alarms. I tried
Yeah.
doing an alarm for what are your three words? What is this? And what is that? And after a while, I just started ignoring all alarms. I go,
Yeah.
oh, I missed my appointment with Alex again.
Yeah.
The other one was the energy
Mm.
management. When I walked the Camino, people go, oh, I could never walk 500 miles. Well, I'm not asking you to do it in one day.
Yeah.
We developed a very nice routine where we'd get up usually before dawn so we could watch the sun rising behind
Mm.
us as we walk. It was lovely. We'd walk about 2 hours, and as the breakfast places opened, we would stop and have breakfast and interact with our other Camino family members. And then we walk a couple of hours and have coffee, and then walk a couple hours, have lunch. And we'd walk a couple of hours and decide, are we stopping for the day, having coffee and going? And that's how we did it. And it was easy that way.
Yeah.
Because then you're not walking 500 miles, you're just walking 2 hours before you take a break.
Yeah.
And most people can walk 2 hours.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
And if they can't, they're not going on the Camino.
So I want to come back to what you said about fluid scheduling because I found over the years that having a schedule was freeing because I remember spending so much time thinking about what am I going to do next that I could never get into flow. Whereas, and actually, I use Brendan's, um, time blocking and all that good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that does work for me because I'm able to sit myself down and work for a period of time. My alarm goes off, and I'm like, okay, time for a break. I'll go outside. I'll do different things, and then I come back and I can focus again. I can't do the Pomodoro technique, which is like you work for 20
Every
minutes and then like
or
you take it.
yeah,
And I'm like, I don't have time to get into anything in 20 minutes. Right.
right.
So I found what works for me. And I think that's the important thing is there are
Yes.
so many different tools out there, so many different ways that we can attack or tackle productivity. Trial and error has
Yeah.
comes into play a lot in terms of what is it that's going to work for me based on my rhythm, based on what I
Yeah.
want to accomplish, based on how I normally work throughout the day. But try different things that really helps
Mhm.
you to maximize your output,
Mhm.
right? in the time
Yeah,
that you have.
absolutely. And so I use Brendan's style, but with variations.
Mm,
So I know the three things that need to get done today, but I'll go so far as to say, and in the first one, be sure to do this, this, and this, because I can get too focused. And I set an alarm for 50 minutes and get up and move for 10 minutes.
that's what I do.
Walk around the property, or in the new case, I'll walk around the ship a few times. Um, go say hi to the cats or to my husband. The cats are very good about keeping me on track.
They're like clocks themselves.
They are. Yeah. So, yes, some kind of schedule has to work for us to keep us going and being productive and play with it. Playing with it's half the fun.
And that's it. There is a lot of fun to be had in trying to figure out what's
What's
going to
ideal
work,
for
and
you.
trying new
Yeah.
things. Trying new things is fun. It may
Yeah.
not work, but at least right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Next one is influence. And influence is, so when I talk to my clients about influence, often people talk about, well, influence is manipulation, right?
Yes.
And I think there's a difference. For me, the inherent difference is when I'm trying to influence somebody to do something, I'm doing it because I believe it will benefit them in one way or another. It doesn't mean that I don't also get a benefit, but there's an inherent benefit for them in thinking about something in a different way, looking at something in a different way, engaging with something. Whereas manipulation is, we do it, there is an element of deception. There is an element of, I would say, dishonesty. And when we manipulate somebody into doing something, we're doing it solely because we get something out of it.
Selling ice cubes to an Eskimo.
Right. So that's the distinction that I make, because when we think about what we want to accomplish in life, we're never going to be able to do it all by ourselves. And for me, part of the reason why I'm here, part of my mission is to help other people live their dream, right? Rise to their own ambitions, level up their life so they can be fulfilled, and they can be, they can make the difference that they want to make.
They want, yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to take a level of influence to get them to see beyond where they are. So if I can influence them in, thinking about, okay, so maybe maybe my life could look like this. Maybe, and who do I need to be then if my life is going to look like this? That's from personally, a positive influence. Do I get
Yes.
something out of it? I get a hell of a lot of satisfaction if they're reaching their dreams and they're making changes that make them happier. Um, Clearly I'm getting paid for it, so I have a financial interest, but I'm never going to put my needs ahead of my client's needs, or
Right.
my boyfriend's needs, or, it's not just work relationships, it's relationships, period. If I want Honey to take out the trash, you get, more from Honey than vinegar. That takes influence.
Yeah. Part of the way I would explain it to people too is I'd point out that we all negotiate through our days. We negotiate with the other who gets that last serving of cereal or milk, or who gets the last bite of the brownie. We negotiate which TV show we're going to watch, which movie we're going to go to. I mean, there's always negotiation, and we do influence the other's input. If no other reason, just by stating what our preference is.
Yeah.
I would much rather eat at that restaurant today if that could work for you. I'm really looking forward to this kind of service, this bit of food. So that when I express it that way, my clients have gone, okay.
Yeah. It's a give and take, right? There are times
It is
when we influence people, and there are times when others influence us.
influence us, and we don't always get our way during
Mhm.
these negotiations, the influence. But if it's a good relationship, you get your way this time and I get mine next
Yeah.
time, or in 3 times. So it balances. We're back to balance.
Yeah.
And it's satisfying when we try different things, and influence helps us try different things.
And there's a trust element there as well, right? That we trust the other person to engage at
Point.
the same level that we're engaging in. And
Yes.
and you can feel it, right? You can feel when somebody's trying to like pull the wool over your eyes, or if they're not being completely authentic. You can feel that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. And that then, if you're not being authentic, then you're not really influencing. You're manipulating.
Exactly. But I like really what you mentioned about negotiating, because it's engaging in that discussion. And the more honest, the more transparent, and the more open the communication, the better that relationship is going to be, and the more trust it's going to establish, and the stronger the foundation will be for the two to engage.
And the more influence you each have on the other, or if it's a group that you all have with each other. Yeah.
So, anything else on influence that you want to add?
I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. And then the last one is necessity. So, everything that we've talked about is important in terms of reaching high performance. And one of the last key pieces is raising the necessity. So it's easy to wake up one morning and say, oh, I don't feel like calling 20 people, and I don't feel like writing this presentation, or I don't feel like. And the way you get around that is by raising the emotion behind why you're doing this, right? So raising necessity for me is knowing what your why is. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do the things that you want to do? Why do you want to become this new person that you're growing into? And the more tangible and the more emotional you can connect with that vision, the higher your necessity will raise. The higher it's going to go up, the more you're going to feel that pull to do the things that you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing them.
That resistance will be lower when you know your why and keep it pumped up. Yeah.
You'll have the discipline to do the things that you need to do, even when you don't want to do them, because you
Right.
have in your mind's eye why you're doing it.
And you have the other pillars to help support the necessity. You'll have the energy and the focus, the organization.
And if you don't, it's an opportunity to step back and say, okay, if this is so important for me, what do I need to do? And who do I need to grow into to make sure that this happens? So it gives you the fuel to
Yeah.
continue the growth process.
And the flip side of that is if you can't get yourself to do it, then it's time to sit back and say, is that what I really want? Maybe I need to influence myself, negotiate, come up with something that's better for me, that will help me stay inspired and energized and moving forward.
And it's an opportunity to, like you said, think back, is this really what I want? And being honest with ourselves, because I feel that sometimes we do things simply because, or we want things simply because society says this is what we should want, or this is what we should have, or because our friends have a bigger car, so I should have a bigger car, or whatever
Right.
the case
Yeah.
may be.
Right.
But when the pull is external, it's very different than when the pull comes from a deep-seated
Isn't
desire
it?
for whatever it is that we're seeking.
Yes, absolutely. And when we fuel our bodies with good sleep and good nutrition, good movement, and we have good community around us, do all the things that the 6 pillars,
Mm.
5 other pillars guide us to do, then that necessity flows beautifully and does come from our core, I think.
Yep, fully agree. Fully agree. Anything else you want to say on necessity? Anything that you might want to add on the whole conversation we just had?
Um, no, I think we covered it well. I mean, we could go on for hours, and I teach, I share stories, uh, which is my style. And I've always got lots of stories. Um, but no, I think we've covered it well.
Okay.
Do you have anything that just popped into your head that we need to cover?
I don't think so. I think we owe it to ourselves to show up as our best self. And sometimes we can't do that on our own. So that's why I want to invite whoever is
Mm,
listening. If any of what we talked about today resonates, I'm happy, more than happy, to have a strategy session with you to talk through a little bit more in depth in your situation what the pillars of high performance means. And I'll drop that, we'll drop the details in the comments. So
yeah,
we can do that.
excellent. And I like the comment that you brought in, that you have to know your why.
Mm.
I think why and purpose are vital to living, and especially as we grow older, we grow into that third phase of life where we're supposed to retire or do something different. What are you going to do to keep yourself engaged in your life? And knowing your why will help you do that. So I'll offer a why discovery to help you learn your why, how, and what, so that you know why you're doing what you do in every aspect of your life. And Alex, next time we do a call, I'm going to be out on the high seas somewhere.
That's going to be so awesome. It'll be interesting to see how you adapt and accommodate your new surroundings.
Well, as you talk about the pillars, I had been beating myself up for not living my high performance life. Man, I had it dialed in with good diet and movement, and I was stayed scheduled in my way and focused, and all of this going on. And I've learned that when I'm not grounded, and right now I feel like I'm living in limbo.
Yeah.
I am not successfully living a high performance life. I finally just backed off and said, fine, kid, you know when you will get to start your new life, and you can create your high performance life any way you want then. And it may not look like what you had in Colorado, but it will be something new and refreshing for you for now.
And you can
So
build it any which way you want.
that's right. That's right. And all of that's exciting. It's risky,
Yeah.
but I like to look at risk as an adventure.
Mm.
Boy, am I on an adventure.
You are on an adventure.
After we sold everything we owned, the ship we thought we were going to go on basically canceled. And so then we had to regroup and figure out what to do next. Well, we don't own any winter clothes, so what warm climate can we go to? Since we have friends in Vegas, we decided
There you go.
land in Vegas for the winter.
There are
So,
worse places to be. And I know
yes,
you've got that killer view.
I have a view of the sphere.
That's cool.
Oh, and during the eclipse, it showed the eclipse. It just
Oh, I saw your
it's like
post. That was awesome.
it was so funny.
Cool.
So anyway, all right. Well, thank everyone for coming to watch us and sign up for my Why Discovery or Alex's session, and let's live our best lives
Amen,
for
sister.
as long as we can.
Possibly can. Exactly.
All right.
All right.
So I'm Kit Cassingham, longevity mindset coach with Live in Focused Energy.
And I'm Alex Niel, certified high performance and mindset coach, and we will see you next month.